All right, we're just about ready to get started. We have it set so that anyone who is coming in to watch our webinar tonight, your camera's going to stay off. You can stay in your pajamas and just listen and take it all in. You'll have a chance to ask questions towards the end, but I'll go all over that. I'm going to get started on time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I will start by acknowledging something that's true across the country. It's become incredibly difficult to get parents and caregivers to attend sessions like this. Life is busy and schedules are full, and there's always something competing for your time. The fact that you made the choice to be here tonight says a great deal about your commitment to the children in your life, and we appreciate you, and you deserve the real credit for being here. Some of the topics that we're going to cover tonight can feel a little bit overwhelming. They can feel scary and they're scary to think about, especially when we picture our own kids in these situations. But that's exactly why we're here. When we understand what's happening in the digital world, we can make better decisions and guide our kids with more confidence. It's important to remember that these issues are not happening somewhere else. They are not limited to big cities or distant communities. They're happening everywhere, including right here in Mashpee and across Cape Cod. Our kids are navigating a digital landscape that changes quickly, and they need the adults around them to stay informed and engaged. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. Make sure I go to the right presentation and allow that. And there we go. I'm at the beginning. Does that look good? Thumbs up from my panelist people? Nice. Before we begin, I'm going to give you a few logistics. This session is for adults. We're not intending to be chatting with kids tonight. It'll move really quickly, and we're going to cover a lot in 1 hour. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll share out the link once it's posted. There will also be time for questions at the end. We are very fortunate to have this panel with us tonight. Each person brings deep experience and a unique perspective, and together they have a tremendous amount to share. It would be very easy to fill several hours with what we have to share. They will each introduce themselves as they speak. We want you to think of tonight as a beginning of an ongoing learning process. It requires attention and a willingness to keep learning as things evolve. Digital safety is not a one-time conversation. If you find tonight helpful, I encourage you to talk with other parents and caregivers. Share what you learn, and then when the recording is available, please pass it along to anyone who might benefit from it. The more informed our community is, the safer our kids will be. Thank you again for being here. Your presence matters. And so let's get started. So I get to go first. I'm Suzy Brooks. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology for Mashpee Public Schools. I'm in my 11th year here. I can't believe that. My work gives me the chance to partner with students and families and teachers and administrators and substitutes and the wider community. And a big part of my role is focused on online safety and student data privacy. But I also support teachers as they integrate technology. I help make content more accessible for all learners, and I guide our district as we adapt to digital worlds that is constantly changing. Sessions like this are an important part of that work because keeping kids safe online is truly taking all of us. Tonight, what I'm going to do is walk you through a resource created specifically for Mashpee families, but can be shared outside the district as well. It's called the MPS Family Resource Site, also known as Keep Them Safe. This site brings together the tools, the explanations, and the guidance that our families need the most. In here, you're going to find videos and articles and resources and links and more, all organized so that you can find what you need without feeling overloaded. We like to say that we eat an elephant one bite at a time, and this site follows that same idea. Whether you want a quick answer, a deeper dive, or something to share with another adult that's in your child's life, the Keep Them Safe site, that's a mouthful. The Keep Them Safe site is here to support you. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. I'm going to not do that. Escape and family resources. So you should see Keep Them Safe in front of you. Yes. Nice. So I'm going to give you kind of a flyover of this site, but I'm going to start with this infographic. that what's really sticking out to me this year more than the last time we did this presentation is that how early and how often kids are now using technology, and then how that early exposure increases their risk. Children are getting personal devices at very young ages. Many toddlers already have tablets, and by elementary school, a large number, 40%, have smartphones. I'm sorry, 25%. Yes, 25%. By age 15, almost every teenager has a device, which is just like mind blowing. And many younger children are already active on social media, even though they are technically too young for those platforms. They might say over 13, but there's a huge number of students that are under that age that are on these platforms. When we start accessing this early, the risks start early too. We are seeing a dramatic rise in AI powered abuse, online enticement, and financial sextortion. Bullying has expanded into a constant digital environment that follows kids across every device that they use. The digital landscape is changing, and staying informed matters. When we are understanding the connection between early access and increased risk, we are better prepared to guide and to protect our kids. So the way this site works, at the top are your navigation buttons. This is your homepage. So later on at the bottom here is we have our Richard Geary stuff here, but at the bottom where it says parent presentations coming soon, that's where you'll find this recording. That's where it will live. There's an entire page of videos, and all of these resources are constantly updated. So I see something or I hear something, I'll come in here and I'll add it to this site so that others are able to check it out as well. Even just a case recently that happened in Lancaster where two boys, 14 years old, ended up taking pictures, like 350 pictures of students that they were in school with, and used AI to, they call it nudify, to nudify it so that these students looked like they were nude. And so they are going to be held accountable for that. But if they were adults, they would be headed to prison. So if you scroll down, you will find that there are tons. I have categorized them into things that kids get into with their friends, things that happen with strangers, things about AI. There's no lack of video to watch. They're of different lengths. Some of them you may decide after you watch them that they're appropriate to watch with your child, depending on the age and the nature of the video. But some of them are just for the adults so that you can expand your knowledge base and have a good idea of what's going on out there. So that's the whole video section. There's also this website section, which has all kinds of obviously websites that are kind of resources where you'll find more information than you could probably ever pour through. I spend a lot of time looking at information in these topics, and I know that there's really no end to it, but there is an end to the page. It doesn't go on and on like the video page. The next one are articles. These are updated all the time as well. There's some recent ones in here, like the new bill that's on its way in Massachusetts that's going to do two things. It's going to limit the use of cell phones in school. It's going to be something that is not allowed, and also to prevent students who are under 14 from having any social media, and ages 14 and 15 to require parent permission. And these are going to be legal requirements, not just guidelines or recommendations. Right now, it's back in the Senate, and they're waiting to be able to approve that. And it looks like it'll be an early fall start for those. You might have been following the recent trial that's going on out in California. It just ended, and Meta and YouTube were both found guilty because they were doing things with their platform that they knew that they would harm children, and they pushed them through anyway. The amount of evidence that came out in that trial is overwhelming, and it's shameful to know what was happening regardless of how it affected kids. And then I've also included about the student who hacked into Power School. If any of you are Mashpee families, you know that our Power School was hacked. And this is a message from him about being regretful and about the addiction that he felt to trying to hack things and get around things. And it started off with just getting access to games, which I can tell you is a huge part of my job, trying to keep kids from doing that all day long. That's the site on articles. There's a whole page with resources, very similar to the websites, but these are going to be more like checklists and things that you can go through to make sure that you've like understood them. We have like a fact sheet with all the cyberbullying, abbreviations, a parent's guide to sexting. So these are more like resources. Then we have a whole section on gaming, which I added after I built the site because I had my kids are now 29 and 27. So when they started using computers, it was pretty early on, but I was into technology a lot so that I felt like they were getting away with nothing. And they would tell you when it came to computers that they didn't get away with anything. But at the same time, my son would go down into the basement to play his games on his, whatever he was on, Xbox or his PlayStation, and he'd be able to talk to strangers on the internet. And I was just happy as a clam upstairs, thinking I was doing a great job. So, because of that, I decided to put together a whole page on gaming. So there's videos and articles and resources all about gaming online. I'm sure you're going to hear more about that tonight. Then we have a section on AI, which we can't talk about anything anymore without talking about AI. So I've added a whole resource in here for parents about AI and some guidelines when it comes to your students. There's also a section in here on violence, which there are online. You'll find that there are terror networks, often that are run by kids, teenagers, trying to get other teenagers to hurt themselves or hurt each other, all in the name of, I don't know, just being awful. And it's a big deal, and there's a lot to learn about it. And it's just one of those topics that you can tell just even by the front of this YouTube video that the content is not easy to learn about, but I feel better for having known it than being in the dark about it. So I definitely encourage you to explore it. These are tools. One of the biggest questions I get from parents is what can I install on my network? What can I install on my computer? What can I install on my kid's phone? What can I do with technology to control technology? My recommendation, and I'll say this twice because it's twice as good, is that there is a Facebook page called Parenting in a Tech World. I have 243,000 people listed here, but I think it's closer to 700,000 now. I have not looked today to see what their number is up to. You have a question about anything, there are people that will answer. And the climate there should be that there's no stupid questions. We're there to help each other. It's worth joining Facebook under a fake name just to be able to go in this group and learn a lot. But you'll find other tools in here on using, different tools that come with your cable provider or your phone provider, things to track what your kids are doing online. But at the bottom, it's going to tell you that there is nothing better than a good adult who does things in person and has conversations with kids. Do not rely on these tools. Do not consider them to be set it and forget it. It's not enough, especially with a determined student or child who is determined to get around it. So it really takes a human. And then the last section, because it's not big enough, I added this because what I have done over time is I have started following, there's that Facebook page again, because it's that awesome. I have started following different social media accounts that are all out there to try and keep kids safe online. And so my regular feed when I'm going through my Facebook or through my Instagram is that once in a while, I will see posts about these topics. It keeps me fresh. Even like this one here, Scrolling to Death. She's one of my favorites. She was literally in the courtroom for the whole YouTube meta trial. And so that's how I was able to keep up with what was going on with that. So being able to follow these accounts is hugely helpful, and it helps to keep you in the know. And if you ever come across some that aren't on my list, feel free to reach out. I would be happy to be able to add it to the list and to follow them myself. So my job tonight was to give you a tour of that site. I'm going to bring us back to our presentation, and I am going to move to the next slide. So ladies, as you go, you can tell me when you're ready to go to your next slide. But up next, we have Officer Katie Hennessey.
There we go. I think I'm unmuted.
Good.
Good evening. I am Katie Hennessey. I am the School Resource Officer for Mashpee Public Schools. This is my sixth school year with Mashpee and my 23rd year in law enforcement. I'm part of the Human Trafficking Task Force for the Cape and the Islands. And I work closely with all of the different agencies that are represented here. I wouldn't be able to do my job as efficiently if I didn't have them. So I really appreciate them being here tonight and helping us out with this to try to inform parents and just give a brief overview on keeping our kids safe. Being in the schools for 6 years, the kids have become just as much my kids and my family, and I care about them, and I want to be able to protect them too. For whatever reason you're watching, if you're new to parenting in a technology world, or this is something you're just trying to gain more resources, I appreciate you and I commend you for being here, or watching this if you watch it recorded. As a school resource officer, yes, I am law enforcement. That is a big part of my job, but it's only a small part. It's also a mentoring, a role model in education. I love to teach stuff like these classes and get into classrooms and teach them about social media safety. Suzy and I have worked together along with the guidance department to get into classrooms to do that. And the Children's Cove has come up with a teen task force, which has been an excellent resource for students to be able to connect with other students that they might feel comfortable talking to. Some of the things I'm going to talk about or touch on tonight, Suzy, you can go to the next slide. There we go. I made the slides very brief so that they're kind of easy to touch on each topic. To start off with is your parental controls that you have on your children's devices. Know what they're doing and knowing what they're downloading. Your phone should kind of mirror theirs. And if they're downloading a new app, know what that is and have some type of notification that they're downloading that, and dive a little deeper into why they want to download it and what they want to use it for. Try to have regular conversations about what they're sending and receiving, what they're using those apps for in their privacy settings. One of the biggest things that kids want is followers and friends and people. The biggest issue is they're trying to connect with people that they don't know, and it makes them vulnerable to sextortion or to sexting or receiving explicit material, or being vulnerable to talking to people that they probably shouldn't be talking to. And so just having those open dialogues with them about who they're talking to, who they allow to follow them, and make sure that they know everybody that is in their friends list, their followers, so that they're not opening themselves up to a predator or somebody that could be trying to contact them that shouldn't. Have regular conversations about, I think I already said that, have regular conversations about what they're sending and receiving, and make sure that they're aware that nobody should be sending them material if they're under the age of 18, and they shouldn't be sending anybody. I don't think they should ever do it, even as an adult, but legally they can't send or receive explicit material until they're 18. Normalize having difficult conversations. It can be hard and uncomfortable to have conversations, and don't assume that they know something or that you know something about what they're doing. So if you can open that up and open that dialogue with them, or identify a trusted adult, somebody that they could go to ask those questions to. Having their devices in common areas. One thing that I see a lot with kids is they come to school tired, and it's because they have their devices. If you have TikTok, if you have Instagram, it's so easy. Even as adults, we're guilty of it, is scrolling and scrolling all night long, and we realize that it's super late at night. So have your student, have your child have those devices in common areas in the living room, not in their bedroom, and not where they have access to them all night, so that you know who they're talking to. Especially if you have gaming devices, you can hear that conversation. If they're playing with somebody live, you want to have them in common areas. If you have, one thing that we run into is if kids get in trouble using their devices, is that they find ways around being able to gain access to social media and the internet. And knowing who is on your Wi-Fi or what devices are logged into your Wi-Fi is a good way to navigate that. And kids will borrow devices from friends, or they'll use old devices, or if a student if they have friends that have an old device and theirs gets taken away, they will borrow it from them. So just knowing what devices are logged into your internet, and then having notifications if any new devices get try to log into the internet. I don't suggest sharing your Wi-Fi password at home with them, or setting it to one that only you can access to add new devices to that. That might be one way to navigate that. And go through your child's phone regularly. Know what's on there. Know what they're using it for. Know what's in their pictures. If you see their hidden photos, you can actually hide photos. If you've ever looked through an iPhone or an Android phone, there's a hidden photo section that has to be password protected. If there's photos in there, that's where you might find some things. Same thing with if they have Snapchat, there is a My Eyes Only section. So make sure that you're aware of everything that they're saving in their phones. If you don't find it in text message, a new thing that it's probably not new, it's just something that I realize kids are doing recently if they get their devices taken away, that they can also use on their school Chromebooks, is Google Docs or their notes section. So that's how they'll talk back and forth instead of text messaging. They'll share a Google Doc and they can add conversations on that. So we found some stuff on that when we've done investigations. So that's just another way that kids are kind of getting around that. You can go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
So I use this picture to kind of show from a legal standpoint what we deal with the most. And it's sexting, bullying, and harassment are the three biggest things that we deal with. Ways that sexting is the three most common that which children's Anna can probably add to, or Danielle can probably add to, but the three that I see the most is boyfriend and girlfriend, them thinking that nobody's ever going to share that. I'm only sending it's a private picture between the two of us, and they think it's never going to get shared out. So that's one way. Unsolicited sexually explicit material, meaning they send inappropriate pictures to their friends to try to be funny, or to try to get some type of reaction out of their friends, not realizing that sending that is actually illegal to do to somebody that's underage. I see it a lot more with boys, especially younger teenage boys. So just having those conversations with them. If you get sent that material, or you send somebody, even if it's a picture that you found on the internet, you can be held responsible for that. And then the scam or sextortion, where somebody will groom somebody to send them a picture or try to talk to them and say, hey, let's exchange pictures through some type of social media, a direct message, a Snapchat. Snapchat is the most common one that we see it on. And the student or child sends a picture to them and they say, if you don't pay me or give me a certain amount of money, I'm going to send it to everybody in your friend group or all of your family. We see that a lot. And most kids panic or don't know what to do. So just having those conversations, if that ever happens to them, there is ways that we can get that picture taken down. There's ways that a parent can get that picture taken down as well, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on in the presentation. So just if you're going to allow your student or your child to have a phone or a device, or just have those conversations with them about appropriate and inappropriate material to send. And if that does happen, just know that we're here to help, that we want to get that picture taken down. We want to find out who asked for it. So I encourage you to report it so that we can have that process, or talk to your child about a safe person or a person that they trust to report that to if they're nervous about telling a parent, and we can work through having that conversation with you together. The process when something like this is reported is, a lot of times parents panic when they hear that we file a 51A or that we file with DCF, and it's just to get assistance. It's just a part of the process, and it's to help kind of set off a process with Children's Cove in the DA's office to kind of mitigate the situation and help the family work through it. So I don't want parents to panic when they hear that we file a 51A, because it's DCF is full of resources and assistance. So that is the only reason that we do that. So I think it's an important piece of it to remember in those for those. The other piece is bullying and criminal harassment. A lot of kids don't realize that things that they post online about other kids, things that they send, messages that they send, emails, however they navigate that, or they try to um, bully other kids or harass other kids. They don't realize posting it can be on there and be on there forever, or it's difficult to take down. And once they send something, they can't unsend something. So we just have conversations with them about things that they're posting, even if they don't get along with somebody. Unfortunately, bullying and harassment used to be something that kids kind of, if they left school, they could kind of get away from. But now it's a 24-hour, it's always there. It does affect their mental health and things that they're doing. And if there's 3 or more incidents by a single person, if there's 3 or more texts or 3 or more posts, or all those things can amount to criminal harassment. It's not just bullying. So just having those conversations about healthy things that they post and things that they're doing online. And most importantly, if you see something, or you know something happened, or you see something online that's posted that shouldn't be, or you think it's a problem, please report it to somebody. We want to know about it. We want to work through it. And if it doesn't feel right, we want you to tell us about it. So that's the other important piece. The next slide. So these are there's a ton more, and we'll talk about them more later in the presentation. These are the ones right now that I'm seeing the most of, that kids are on: TikTok, Snapchat, Be Real, which I've never actually used myself. I think you have to take a picture. It's a certain time of day in order for the streak to keep going. Instagram, those are the big social media sites that we see the kids using the most, and that we have the most issues with. There's a lot more that they use, but these are the ones that we seem to have the most reports or police reports generated from. And Discord, Roblox, and WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a chat. You can chat back and forth, similar to text messaging. And then Roblox and Discord are video games, or a gaming network that kids are chatting with other people that they might not know, that could be inappropriate, or that they're getting them to sign into other social media platforms and friend them on that. So those are just a few that we are picking from that I've seen the most in criminal investigations just recently, and they changed constantly. So that is kind of a very condensed version of just things we're seeing in law enforcement, things that we see the most in schools, and the apps that we mostly use. And then I believe Anna from Children's Cove is next.
We have Heidi next.
Oh, sorry, Heidi.
No worries at all. No worries. So, hi everyone. My name is Heidi Friedel. I am the Community Programs Coordinator at Children's Cove. I know we just talked a bit about us and what we do. So we are the Child Advocacy Center for the Cape and Islands, and so we help to provide a coordinated response for crimes against children, and get together to bring those professionals to really help support that child and non-offending caregiver in their time of need. You can see here is
Sorry.
good. That's just a picture of our building. You can see it's a child-friendly, more safe, comfortable environment. Looks just like a home. So that's our building. Next slide, please. So we work closely, like I said, with law enforcement, the district attorney's office, the Department of Public Health, and Department of Children and Families here on the Cape and Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. And we help to provide that coordinated response for cases involving child sexual abuse, physical abuse, witness to domestic violence, commercial sexual exploitation, and trafficking. And at the Cove, we can support children really from birth through age 18, as well as help serve adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities for those cases, as well as a more comfortable setting for what's called a forensic interview, which I'll briefly touch on as well. And so all of our services are really culturally and developmentally inclusive for that child and family, and all of our services are at no cost at the Cove. And you can kind of see over to the left, we're really focused on that being child-centered and having all of those different folks within the multidisciplinary team, that being law enforcement, district attorney's office, really to all come together to work to help support that child. Next slide, please. So here's just kind of a visual of the process of a child advocacy center versus without. So in the first one, you can see the example of a girl who has come forward disclosing something has happened, a crime has taken place. And prior to child advocacy centers, a child would have to go and talk with anywhere from 5 to 8 different people, that being law enforcement separately, someone from prosecution, district attorneys, Department of Children and Family, all of those, that child having to have that conversation over and over again. So really with Children's Cove, it's to for that child to come to us, have that conversation one time to give their statement to really maximize information and minimize re-traumatization for that child. So we get together all of those people in one place at Children's Cove, and that's where that's held. Next slide. Here you can see our space. It's a little redecorated now, but our space is there. And so those cases are all coordinated within the multidisciplinary team. And that what we're really known for at the Cove is that forensic interview. So when a child is ready, willing, and able to talk about what has happened, that's done with a trained forensic interviewer, Anna Colby, who is one of them. And it's done always in a non-leading, non-suggestive way for purposes of a criminal investigation, like I said, to really maximize information and minimize re-traumatization for that child. Next slide. And so following the forensic interview, so that multidisciplinary team, so someone from law enforcement where that crime took place, and someone from district attorney's office, we have our PDC nurse, we have all of these people that will come to support that child, but that child will only be talking with the forensic interviewer during that, but we will also provide services, including family support services to help support the family. That could be if there's food insecurity, if that child might want to go to a camp, really to help that healing process, and offering clinical services, counselors as well. Either we can provide that at Children's Cove or we can refer out. And then we also have a pediatric sexual assault nurse examiner on staff as well, and she can provide visual medical exams through that are non-invasive through a do no harm approach. Next slide. And so a lot of what I get to do with education and training is to really provide, like things tonight, with the prevention and awareness, that being to parents or schools, at rec programs for those camp counselors, and just really anyone in the community who is, able, that works closely with families. We want to be able to provide education and bring awareness to this topic, whether it be, of course, online safety and exploitation, as well as just red flags and, anything that we can do to help support and bring awareness to what Children's Cove is. And then I know Officer Hennessey touched upon it, our Mashpee Teen Task Force program. So the Teen Task Force program is a youth leadership and prevention initiative where those students, right now, there's a group of sophomores at the high school, and they get to come to Children's Cove and get to see our building, meet with all of our staff, hear about each role that we provide, and they get to really learn about different topics about consent consent, online safety, child abuse prevention, where they get to table at the school to bring awareness to these topics. And also they'll be getting to go to QuashNet in June. So we're looking forward to that. And we kind of pair it with Richard Geary, who previously, he came out earlier this year, who has some great resources that Suzy touched upon. So next we have Anna.
Hi everyone. Thanks Heidi. So my name is Anna Colby. I'm the Child Exploitation Program Coordinator for Children's Cove, and I'm also a forensic interviewer. Can go to the next slide. So there's lots of acronyms in our jobs, in every job. But for my job, my title is so long, and we've shortened it to the CSEC coordinator. So what is CSEC? It is commercial sexual exploitation of children. So my job is really focused on these specific cases. I do a lot of case management for those. I do the forensic interviews for those. And then I also do education and outreach for those as well. But what exactly is that? So commercial sexual exploitation of children is any sexual act offered or performed in exchange for something of value by a person under the age of 18, so any child. The key words there are something of value. So that's something of value to that child. A lot of people think when it comes to exploitation, when it comes to like quote unquote human trafficking, we think money is exchanged. That's not always the case. It's really whatever that child places value on. So when it comes to online crimes, when we're talking about child sexual abuse material, so those explicit images of a child, when we're talking about sextortion, sexting, exploitation, when these children are sending out these explicit images to people, we think, oh, like they must be accepting money for this. But really, it could be exchanged for anything of value to that child, and that would count as exploitation. So that could be as simple as food delivery or Robux in the Roblox app. So it doesn't always have to be money. It can be anything of value for that child, which I think is an important point to make for people. We can go to the next slide. So a lot of my job is focused on internet crimes against children. So as I mentioned before, that can be sexting as simple as like a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. They feel comfortable in their relationship, like Officer Hennessey was talking about before. They send explicit images back and forth, and then those get disseminated beyond that relationship. And just sending it in the first place is illegal, but then that dissemination further, whether it be posted on social media, it gets leaked onto the internet in some way, it's texted around to a group chat. It's all dissemination of that child sexual abuse material, and it counts as an internet crime against a child. But other things that count, really like that sextortion piece that Officer Hennessey was talking about before, where people are kind of building relationships with these kids online, whether it be through a gaming app, whether it be through social media, and then kind of demanding money or more photos out of these children once they get that photo. And then it kind of just spirals into a situation where the kid doesn't feel like they can get out of it. They kind of get trapped in that web. So we see a lot of that. And like Officer Hennessey mentioned as well, we see that a lot more with males. I don't know what it is exactly, but we see it a lot more with males stuck in that sextortion scenario. And that can really start on any platform. It can start on a gaming app, like I said. A lot of times these do start on gaming apps or social media apps, and then children are redirected to separate messaging apps like WhatsApp, like Telegram, just messaging apps that are better encrypted so that these perpetrators have easier access and they can talk more freely with these children. A lot of social media platforms like Instagram, like TikTok, they are kind of scanning for inappropriate content, whereas more encrypted messaging apps aren't. So that's why they're being redirected by these people to those other outside apps. But really, any internet crime against a child, I'm going to be doing a lot of case management, providing that forensic interview if that child is ready to talk about it, and then providing resources to that family afterwards. So really, it doesn't have to be like so cut and dry. It could really be any internet crime against a child. We're going to try to do our best to support that child and that family as best we can. Can go to the next slide. So I already touched on it a little bit, but a big part of my job is dealing with when these kids, whether they're in a relationship and they're sending photos and then they break up and then their photos are being disseminated, or whether it be kids think it's funny, and like Officer Hennessey was talking about, they think it's funny to send out the photos to a group chat or whatever it may be. Um, it is illegal. Even if that photo is shown in person, like literally like the device is shown but not sent, it counts as dissemination. So I think it's really important for kids to understand that it's illegal, and you guys as parents and caregivers, it's super important for you to understand that. So if you catch wind of it, you can inform your child about it. If they're talking about a photo that's being circulated around school, they have the tools and you have the tools to provide to them to inform them, like, hey, that's a crime. You need to stop it. Be the one to stop that share. Don't send it out, because then that can get them in trouble as well. We want to be sure that our kids know if they're receiving any sort of explicit image, whether it be requested or against their will, it just pops up in a message on their phone. They need to know that they should be the ones to be stopping that send. They shouldn't be forwarding that to anyone in any way, because it can lead to, unfortunately, charges in the future if they are disseminating that image. Can go to the next slide. Thank you. I just put some examples of child exploitation on here. I'm not going to go through all of them. Some of them are in-person examples. These are all real examples that I've had come across my desk. Some of them are happening in person. Some of them, like getting food delivery in exchange for an explicit image, or being coerced into sending images due to threats from a peer. Are obviously fully like online based, but I think it's important to note that a lot of the in-person exploitation that we're seeing, the in-person even like human trafficking that we're seeing, a lot of it, I would say like 99% of it starts online, whether they're adding random people on Snapchat and then they're meeting up with them in person, or they think it's a friend of a friend. They build a relationship. It starts online. They're talking on Snapchat. They're talking on TikTok. Maybe they're playing games on like some sort of gaming app. They have like the voice. I can't think of the word right now. My brain's not working. But they're able to talk to these people through the gaming app, and then they decide to meet up in person, and that's when bad stuff happens. So even with the in-person examples, a lot of it really does start online. So it's important to know what's going on in your kid's phone, who they're talking to, what they're talking about, what apps they're using, all that good stuff. So if you can go to the next one. So protecting yourself and your child from this, your student from this, I always like to say, if you follow these three things, it's gonna help. I'm not saying it's never gonna happen, because we unfortunately live in a world where technology is literally everywhere. We can't escape it. But if we follow these things, then we can help mitigate bad things happening to our children. So knowing the laws about and surrounding photo sharing and dissemination, if you know that law and you impart that knowledge to your child, then they'll know, like, hey, this is illegal. If I participate in this, I'm actively participating in a crime. And I think that's important for these kids to know. It's not just a funny joke. It's not just sending photos. It's not like blasé. It really is important to let them know that it is a crime. So knowing that law for yourself lets you inform them as well. Making sure that they understand what a healthy relationship looks and feels like. We think of relationships as being in person only, but these kids are building relationships online constantly. Even with their friends that they know from school, even their friends they know in person, half their friendship is in person at school, and then the other half starts on their phone when they get home. So really knowing that the rules to a healthy relationship apply not just in person, but to the online world is super important too. Teach them the red flags to look for, what's weird. If something feels weird in person, it's the same as if something feels weird online. Listen to your instincts. Just teaching them that the rules apply for both places, I think is super important. And then practicing that online safety on all your devices, location sharing, all that stuff. I'm going to go into these a little bit more in a second. So yeah, so we can go to the next slide. So I didn't write out the whole law. I pulled some stuff from the law. And obviously there are some new laws coming out about having cell phones in school, as we mentioned before, and things like that with social media. But just knowing the law, you can Google it, the statutes in Massachusetts, you can look up the laws, but essentially, even though a person might have taken a photo or a video of themselves initially, that does not give others permission to distribute it, alter it, whether that be with like editing tools or with AI now. Send it or even threaten to send it. And then if a photo was taken as a result of coercion, it also counts as exploitation. I think that one's really important, especially with those teens, when I think the culture of sexting is very normalized in their generation, and it's almost like some people expect to get a photo. So if that person is begging for a photo and they're asking over and over and over again, and they're maybe even threatening, that is coercion. And if that photo is sent as a result of that coercion, that counts as exploitation. And again, any sort of sending is a crime. So we have to make sure that we're informing our kids of this stuff. We can go to the next slide. I like to put this slide in here because, again, when we think about relationships, we think about in person, but that's not applicable to these kids anymore. Their relationships really are happening in the online world. So we teach about consent in person, what's okay for us, what our boundaries are for in-person life. We like to say it's as easy as fries. It's freely given, it's reversible, it's informed, it's enthusiastic, and it's specific. We teach about consent all the time in the real world, but we have to make sure that we're applying the same rules to the online world. Let your kids know that they don't have to share their location with all their friends. It's not owed to anyone. They don't have to share their social media login with their friends or their partner or whatever it may be. Really, the only person that that's owed to is you as their caregiver. And it's a way just in general, like to make sure that they know their own boundaries. If they have people contacting them 24/7 and it's giving them anxiety and it's making them uncomfortable and they feel overwhelmed by that phone going off all the time, making sure they know what their boundaries are, what they're consenting to when they're giving out their phone number, when they're sharing their location with people. So I just think it's important to make sure that it's known for not just in person, but online too. You can go to the next slide. Officer Hennessey talked about this a little bit. Obviously, knowing where the online risks are is super important. She talked about the popular apps, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Discord, Roblox. A lot of people don't think of the gaming apps when they think of risky places that your kid is living in the online world. But I would say Roblox is one of the biggest offenders when it comes to children. I think we've had cases with children as young as 8 years old. They're on these apps. Parents think it's a perfectly acceptable app for their kid to be on. It's just games. It seems pretty innocent. But those games do have messaging capability, so people can message your child if they have access out, people have access in. So making sure that all of those privacy settings on any sort of app that your child has is set to private. There are a lot of times you can take away the ability to message outside people on those apps. So making sure you're familiar with all these apps that are on your kids' devices. If you see an app that's unfamiliar on your kid's phone, download it or maybe Google it before you download it so you make sure it's safe. But definitely make sure you know what that app is, what it does, why they have it, just like Officer Hennessey mentioned before. But yeah, just familiarizing yourself with it. Everything out there, which is impossible. There's a new app every day, but just doing our best to stay up to date. Practicing online safety on all your devices is super important. Kids are always, especially those middle and high school kids, they want to be TikTok famous. I get it. They want to go viral so bad. We all get it. But just making sure that that social media is private, making sure that the location services on those apps are set to private. Instagram just updated recently, so they have like Instagram locations now. So if your child is posting on Instagram, it automatically updates their location on that. So make sure that's disabled. Snapchat obviously has Snap Maps. It's very, very detailed in Snap Maps. You can really zoom into someone's location down to where they are in the building, which is scary stuff. So make sure that you know what apps have location settings. Make sure they're private. Um, Make sure that your kids aren't accepting weird friend and follow requests on these apps. A lot of kids will, I've seen cases before where kids will go on Snapchat and they just go down the suggested friends list, just adding anyone who comes up, which obviously opens them up for huge risk if strangers are having access to them like that. Um, be aware of what information you're posting on the internet, and that goes for children, but it also goes for parents and caregivers. A lot of times we post stuff and you post stuff about your kids that seem really innocent. Oh, here's her at her soccer game. Here's her, I don't know, at the play, at the band concert, whatever it may be. You're proud of your kid. You want to brag. You want to show them off. That's totally normal. And you should, but just make sure that you're aware of what information you're putting out into the public if you have accounts that are public. You can find out a lot about someone from their posts. Just make sure that you are aware what exactly the information that you're putting out into the world is. And then obviously making sure your kids know not to share any explicit images ever. It is illegal, and it can really lead to some like real consequences for them down the line. Okay. If abuse is disclosed, if your child comes to you or comes to a peer, you hear wind of it, if any sort of abuse is disclosed, but even with that online stuff, if you hear of a situation of sextortion, of my photos being shared around, of even if it's just like someone's contact me online and I don't know who they are and it's getting weird, make sure that we're staying calm and believing that child, reassuring them that everything's going to be okay. You're going to take care of them. Keep the child informed of the next steps. So obviously that's age and information appropriate. Especially those teens, they want to know what's going to happen next. And it's okay to keep them informed of that. Let them know that you're going to report this. Let them know that if it's happening on their phone, they might have to give their phone in as evidence for a little bit, but they're going to get it back. So just keeping them informed, I think, is super important. And then if there is any sort of evidence, any messaging, conversations, photos, or anything like that on their phone, please don't delete anything off that electronic device until directed to by law enforcement, just to keep that evidence there so we can, it's just easier for us to gather that evidence while it's still on that phone. Some resources. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is a great resource. It was listed on the website, so that's really great. They have a lot of stuff. They have a cyber tip line that anyone can message if you see something weird happening. They have Take It Down, which is a service where if there is an image that has been released onto the internet, they create kind of like a hash code of the photo. It's too advanced for me to understand it really. But basically they will find any image on the internet, wherever it may be, and they'll scrub it from the internet and take it off. NetSmarts has a ton of resources for kids and parents. And then they also have a video called No Escape Room that really demonstrates how sextortion happens, how quickly it happens with these kids. I think that's really powerful for parents and caregivers to watch so that they understand exactly how this is happening. Independence House is obviously a great resource. They have a teens live chat for teens. They can message with a counselor anytime. One Love is a great website for just like healthy relationships, talking to your kids about boundaries, things like that. And then obviously Children's Cove. We have a ton of resources as well. You can always reach out to us. And we can go to the next slide. And I think that's our contact. If you guys want to take a photo, or this is going to be recorded, so you can refer to that if you ever need us. But anyone can call us if you need advice, if you need help with something. You can call our intake line or you can email us as well. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Whitney. I'm the Director of Community Programs and Public Relations for your District Attorney, Rob Gallibois. I have been with the office for coming up on 19 years. Prior to me being in community programs, I was a victim witness assistant assigned to the child abuse unit for over a decade. So I became very familiar with all the great services that Children's Cove provides, all the hardworking law enforcement agencies that we have here on the Cape that do work with tons of children and families. A big part of my job within community programs is doing presentations like this, spreading awareness and really collaborating with schools, law enforcement, and community partners like Children's Cove to really bring awareness to families and to kids, because we don't want to see young kids or families end up in the court system. So how we get involved with families or individuals is when a crime has been committed and someone is charged, or if there's a victim connected to that charge. So we want to spread this awareness and engage with people to make sure that someone doesn't inadvertently get into trouble by using one of these devices, like a juvenile. We see that happening all the time, or have someone's child become victim to someone that's, grooming them, I guess you can say, or targeting them on any of their devices. Can you just go to the next slide, Suzy? We're probably all familiar with all the digital communication devices now: smartphones, computers and laptops, iPads, tablets, online gaming devices, Xbox, PlayStation, and any other device that has access to the internet. One of the things here, this is kind of repetitive to things that Katie, Anna, and Heidi have all gone over, but that just is kind of how all of our jobs intersect. We all work for different agencies, but working together really makes it helpful because it does touch upon all of us in our jobs. Next slide. Some of the privacy settings when we give presentations, part of community programs is we'll go into schools and give presentations to students about how not to get in trouble with these devices. And we do presentations like here tonight for parents and guardians to make sure that we're making parents aware of things that we're seeing and kind of some of those suggestions and tips that we're able to offer. So just always check your child's privacy settings on their devices, each individual app. Make sure that their accounts are set to private and that they're not just, and you're not just sharing your location, having them share their location. Another thing is that if there's an update done, sometimes you need to go back and make sure that the app itself, depending what app or what phone or device it is, sometimes it will disable those. So you want to make sure that all those privacy apps stay on even when you do updates. Again, this is all information that kind of everyone here has already gone over. Make sure your child doesn't accept a friend or follow requests from people that they don't know. Creating strong passwords and not sharing them. That's something that we see far too often, especially with younger kids, where they're best friends with somebody one day. They share their personal information, such as passwords to different accounts that they have. Then the next day or the next week, they're no longer best friends. And that person that has that password will create fake accounts for that person. And can really lead to not so great things, where it's posting things that they shouldn't, impersonating people, really locking that person out of their own account, those types of things that we see. So we really like to make sure that no one is sharing their passwords. Also choosing usernames that don't have identifying information. So we always will give the example to students, Kate MA13 versus Socks Rule 230. By having a username that's Kate MA13, people or strangers could identify things and kind of use that as talking points to be like, hey, Kate, where are you from? Massachusetts? How old are you? 13? It really would help them identify and kind of pick up on things to maybe make them feel like they can form a connection or that they have something in common, where Socks Rule 230 could be, they're from Boston or they're from Chicago, or, they just really like socks. It's more, not so... doesn't give away anything, I guess I'm trying to say. So really coming up with not so generic usernames. Avoid revealing personal information or sharing too much information, and just never meeting anyone in person that they've only met online, because at the end of the day, that person is a stranger. Next slide. Again, some of the apps that your children are on. Katie and Anna did a great job of kind of going over them. Just some things that we like to go over with parents is the 13 plus rule to create an account is not just based on maturity, but it's based on privacy laws. So 13 might be the legal floor, but that's not really necessarily a parenting recommendation. Really making sure that your child is emotionally mature enough and has the ability to handle peer pressure and understanding privacy, I think is important. There are those new laws that are evolving that we kind of touched upon earlier to change the age to as old as 16, 14, 15, 16, or requiring parental consent. One way too is just a suggestion where instead of telling your child that maybe isn't that age, you're too young, maybe having a conversation where these apps are designed for older users, and when they're ready to handle everything that comes with them, then maybe you can revisit it. Next slide. Again, these are part of the location sharing. Snap maps have ghost modes. Really familiarizing yourself with all of those settings, I think makes it easier to be a parent or guardian that has a child with a device. Snap maps, the ghost mode hides your location on Snap Map. There's hidden snaps, which are photos or videos that are saved privately and in that locked section that I think maybe Katie and Anna also touched upon for called My Eyes Only. There's also ways to hide pictures that they've shared, and that's through disappearing snaps where it vanishes after it's viewed. They can save it in a chat and then unsave it, screenshots and recordings. So again, really making sure that they're interacting with people that they know and people that are not just strangers that just friend requested them. Next slide. How many followers or friends or views does your child have on their social media account? Again, kind of to what Anna said, that all those elementary, middle school kids really want to be TikTok famous. So getting those friends or views is really what they're looking at. So like they think more is better. So having that high number of friends or followers online that they don't know can really be risky, and it can be opening them up to potentially being victimized. So really having those conversations with your kids, making sure that, they actually know who this person is, whether it be from school or maybe one of their, a friend's cousin or something that they actually know. Having those conversations really does minimize them becoming vulnerable. Next slide. We always say in these presentations, www. What does that stand for? World Wide Web. So there should be no expectation of privacy when you're posting or sharing anything online. I think that there's a misconception that kids have that things are protected or that things can go away. Once you share something like that, you lose that control. So really remembering that all forms of digital communication can be forwarded, shared, altered, and printed. And then especially with the capabilities that AI has now, we really want to stress that that you kind of lose that control. So anything you post or you wouldn't want everyone seeing, you really need to kind of second give it up more thought. Next slide, please. Cyberbullying. So cyberbullying is spreading rumors, embarrassing pictures, harassing messages, and creating fake profiles through all of these mechanisms. Forms of cyberbullying includes trolling, hate page, insults, threats, and using hate speech. As we mentioned earlier, kids are getting devices younger and younger. So unfortunately, we're seeing these acts of cyberbullying happening to kids that are younger and younger. Next slide. We always go over to what's the most dangerous four-letter word in the digital environment, and it's not a swear word, it's send. Again, once you send something, you lose control and you can never get that back. So really kind of taking a minute and thinking twice before being really reactive and just sending something quickly. We really try to stress that to students when we give presentations and why it's so important. Next slide. Crossing the criminal line. So a lot of these charges here can stem from things that have originated through social media, whether it be, annoying phone calls really isn't a thing anymore because it could just be texting or harassing through online, assault and battery, which people will look at that and say, how is that? Kids are really quick to document everything. We like to call that evidence. So kids are really quick to record fights that they have at school or something that happens. So by recording that could then in turn lead to someone being criminally charged with any of these charges: assault and battery, criminal harassment, which I believe Officer Hennessey went over, where it's 3 or more incidences, threats, violation of a restraining order. That can also be that's something that we see where someone is violating an order that's in place through social media or through electronic devices. Violation of civil rights, possession of child pornography. That would fall under that sexting topic that I think that both Officer Hennessey and Anna had touched upon. We always go over with kids that the media sometimes has a cuter name for it, calling it sexting. We call it possession of child pornography, and that's something that can really follow someone for the rest of their life. So really making sure that they know what that means and what those potential ramifications are is really important. And then, of course, the dissemination of child pornography. So either receiving it, having it, or disseminating it. Those are two different charges that individuals could be charged with. Next slide. Consequences, we like to pull incidences that we've seen that are connected to using an electronic device. So there was a case back in 2023 where 2 teenagers were charged with assaulting 3 students with a knife. A video of the assaults was posted to Snapchat, and that's really how that case came to be. There was arson charges in Plymouth in 2020 where there was teens charged with attempted arson after manipulating electrical outlets as part of a TikTok challenge. Threats charges out of Lowell in 2019 where there was a teen that was charged for threats to harm people via social media on Snapchat. Possession of drug charges have actually been cases that have come about where teens have been charged with possession of Class C substance, amongst other charges. Following a police investigation of a Snapchat account, they were able to see that someone was selling vape cartridges to other students. The other example that we like to give students when we do these presentations are scholarships and admissions implications. So what somebody posts now could matter later. And when they're, 14, 15, 16 years old, not thinking ahead and thinking long term, that something that they post now doesn't matter later. Where we've seen instances where admissions and scholarships have been revoked because they will do a check and they check people's, personal digital footprint where they'll see something that they posted or a party that they were, and that can make them think second guess that person's admission. So also scholarships for football are rescinded after a video is shared to social media where a racial slur is used. So things are really preserved, and definitely people like schools and employers are really able to see these. So we like to kind of give those examples and make sure that kids are aware of that what they do does matter, and not every moment is shareable. So making sure that they don't share too much information. Next slide. Other risks. Again, those TikTok challenges have resulted in property being stolen or vandalized, young people being behaving unsafely, and even instances of death. In Massachusetts, in June in 2021, an 8th grader from Amherst Regional Middle School suffered fatal injuries after he attempted a so-called blackout challenge, also known as a pass-out challenge or fainting game. He was rushed to the hospital and died as a result of his injuries. And again, that's stuff of following for going viral, using Snapchat and other apps to procure drugs. We really like to make sure that kids know that going viral isn't really something that's safe. So give them real examples. We are in the process of updating this because we do have evolving cases, and we like to have more local cases here so we can have what's happening here on the Cape. Next slide. That's all that I have. I'm sorry if anything was duplicative, but like I said, this is why it's so important that we all work together, because it touches all of our jobs in some way. So we really appreciate you being here and, watching our presentation.
Suzy, you're muted.
I'm muted, sorry. I know that we went over a little bit, but I just want to take a second to offer my sincere thanks to our panelists, Katie, Heidi, Anna, and Danielle. I'm so grateful for your time, your expertise, and the care that you brought to this conversation tonight. Each of you plays a vital role in keeping our community informed and our children safer, and we appreciate the work that you do every day. Everything that we covered tonight is part of an ongoing effort. Digital safety is not something that we learn once and then check it off a list. It requires steady attention and a willingness to keep learning as things change. I hope that you leave tonight feeling more confident, more aware, and more prepared for the conversation and the decisions ahead. We have been recording this conversation tonight, so it will be posted out on our channels that you found the link to. Also, we'll include any links that we mentioned, and hopefully you'll be able to continue the conversation with other adults that maybe didn't make it tonight, or share out the recording when you receive it. And feel free to explore any of the resources that we shared. We did offer to stay for Q&A, so if there is any, I will say, well, if anyone's in the chat and wants to put a question into the chat, feel free to do that. One of the questions that we had is, what age should I get a cell phone for my kid? So I know I have 4 people that would love to answer that question. Jump in, ladies.
I don't know that there's necessarily like, I think Danielle hit upon it, that it's maturity level. How mature are you to use social media or use a cell phone in an appropriate way? I think for younger students, if that is a question whether or not you should have a cell phone, there is other options, like watches. I know my nephew, he has a watch that he's able to call like 3 people on if he has an emergency, mom, dad, and I'm one of the contacts listed, and I think one of his friends that lives across the street. But it's an easy way to monitor. So if you're thinking about getting a phone where it's just a call or just to make phone calls to parents, there are options for that. But when it comes to social media, I think it depends on the maturity level of your child.
I can add to what, Katie just said. I definitely think that a watch is a great segue and a good step before getting a phone. I think it depends on what the dynamic of a family is too. If they have sporting events or extracurricular activities that they need to be able to, make a phone call when they need a ride home. But really just making sure that you have boundaries and expectations in place. And I think every child is different. So having those parameters right up front and those boundaries about, not having a cell phone, 24/7, not having it in your room at night really is creating those boundaries from the get-go of receiving a phone, I think is important.
All right.
I also think, just to add really quickly, there are a lot, if you are giving your children a phone, there's a lot of different things that you can install on their phone to monitor their phone. A lot of people have heard of like the Bark app. It's really kind of like a mirroring app where you get to see whatever your child is doing on their phone. You can see their social media, you can see their messages. But I think they even just came out with a Bark phone. So it's like a specific phone that you can give your child as an alternative to just like a regular iPhone, where you're really able to monitor every single thing they're doing on that device. So there are other options if you do feel like they are ready to get a phone, but you're not ready to give full access to the internet.
Right, because essentially you're giving them a computer in a lot of these cases, so you also have to be ready as a parent to jump into that role of monitor and guide and supervisor. So I wouldn't do it until you're ready as a parent. Okay, looking in the chat, I don't see any questions, but please know that you can reach out to any of us at any point. We're always happy, obviously, to talk about this topic. It's something that we're all very passionate about. We are so thrilled that you took the time tonight to join us and to tune in, and hopefully you'll share it out with your friends. And thank you again. Have a great night.